the notification bell to stay updated with stories that will restore your faith in humanity. It was a Monday morning at the prestigious offices of Harrison and Associates when something valuable went missing. A beautiful diamond necklace, worth more than $50,000, disappeared from the office of Victoria Harrison, a wealthy, powerful woman who ran one of the most successful law firms in Boston. Victoria immediately accused someone, Maria Santos, the poor cleaning woman who worked nights at the office. Victoria called the police. She called her insurance company. She went on a media rampage accusing Maria of theft. She demanded that Maria be arrested and prosecuted. But Maria knew she was innocent. And she also knew something that Victoria Harrison didn't know. Something that would destroy Victoria's reputation and expose a decades-old lie. What followed was a trial by media, a search for truth, and a revelation so shocking that it would change everything for everyone involved. Build the story slowly and clearly. Victoria Harrison was exactly what success looked like in America. At 52 years old, Victoria had built one of the most prestigious law firms on the East Coast. Harrison and Associates employed over 300 lawyers. The firm handled high-profile cases and represented some of the most powerful corporations and wealthy individuals in the country. Victoria herself was worth an estimated $150 million. But Victoria hadn't always been wealthy and powerful. She had grown up in a middle-class family in Providence, Rhode Island. Her father had been a factory supervisor, and her mother had been a librarian. They had worked hard and had given Victoria a good education. Victoria had been brilliant from a young age. She had graduated from Harvard Law School at the top of her class. She had become a prosecutor for the Massachusetts District Attorney's Office. And at age 30, she had decided to start her own law firm. Those early years had been difficult. Victoria had worked nights and weekends. She had taken cases other lawyers rejected. She had built her reputation case by case, client by client. And eventually, she had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. But success hadn't made Victoria humble. If anything, it had made her more arrogant. She had begun to believe that she was superior to other people. She began to look down on people who hadn't achieved what she had achieved. She began to treat service workers, cleaning staff, maintenance workers, security guards, like they were beneath her. Victoria had a daughter named Elizabeth, who was 28 years old. Elizabeth was a fashion designer, and she was successful in her own right. But Elizabeth had also inherited her mother's arrogance and sense of entitlement. Victoria's most prized possession was a diamond necklace that had been in the Harrison family for 2 generations. The necklace had originally belonged to Victoria's mother, who had inherited it from her mother. Victoria's mother had given the necklace to Victoria when she turned 21, and Victoria had worn it proudly ever since. The diamonds were high quality, and the design was elegant and timeless. The necklace was worth approximately $50,000. Victoria kept the necklace in her office safe most of the time. She wore it on special occasions. She displayed it proudly, often mentioning to colleagues and friends that it was a family heirloom. Maria Santos had worked as a cleaning woman for Harrison and Associates for the past 8 years. Maria was 56 years old and had immigrated to the United States from Mexico 25 years ago. She had worked multiple jobs throughout her life, trying to survive and support her family. She had had 3 children, and she had put 2 of them through college on her cleaning wages. The 3rd child was currently in her 2nd year of nursing school. Maria worked nights at Harrison and Associates, cleaning the offices after everyone had left for the day. She would arrive at 7 p.m. and work until midnight. She would empty trash cans, vacuum carpets, clean bathrooms, and wipe down desks. It was hard, unglamorous work, but Maria took pride in doing it well. Maria had never had a conversation with Victoria Harrison beyond a polite greeting. Victoria treated her like she was invisible. Victoria would walk past Maria without acknowledging her. Maria had heard Victoria tell colleagues, "Please don't leave your offices messy for the cleaning staff. They're probably not very smart, and I'm sure it confuses them." Comments like this were common. Victoria and many of her colleagues looked down on the cleaning staff. They didn't think of them as real people. They didn't think of them as worthy of respect. But what Victoria didn't know was that Maria was far more intelligent and perceptive than Victoria gave her credit for. Maria had completed high school in Mexico and had taken night classes in English and business management after immigrating. Maria read voraciously in her limited free time. And most importantly, Maria had an excellent memory and paid close attention to details. Maria had also noticed something about Victoria that no one else had noticed. 6 months earlier, Maria had been cleaning Victoria's office late one night when she had accidentally knocked Victoria's office phone off the desk while vacuuming. When Maria bent down to pick it up, she noticed the phone's lock screen. It was a picture of Victoria and a young boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Victoria was holding the boy, and both were smiling. Maria had thought this was strange. Victoria had mentioned her daughter Elizabeth many times, but Maria had never heard Victoria mention having a son. And the boy in the picture looked very much like he could be Elizabeth's younger brother. Maria filed this information away in her mind. Then, about 3 months ago, Maria had found something in Victoria's office trash. A discarded document that had apparently been shredded but not well. Maria had been trained never to read people's private documents, but as she picked up the shredded pieces to throw them away, she accidentally saw some words. She saw the name James Harrison and a date, and words like custody and adoption and records sealed. Maria had immediately felt guilty for seeing this and had thrown the documents away without looking further. But the information had planted a seed in her mind. 3 weeks ago, Maria had found an old photograph in the corner of Victoria's office, partially hidden under a filing cabinet. It was a photograph of Victoria, much younger, maybe in her late 20s, with a baby. The baby had distinctive features, a birthmark on his left cheek that looked like a small crescent moon. Maria had carefully placed the photograph back where she found it and said nothing. But now, in her mind, the pieces were starting to form a picture. ## make viewers emotionally invested. It was a Monday morning when Victoria rushed into her office at 7:30 a.m. and immediately noticed that her desk had been cleaned by the night staff. Everything appeared to be in order. Her papers were neatly organized. Her desk was clean. But when she unlocked her office safe, her face went pale. The diamond necklace was gone. Victoria immediately called security. "Someone has broken into my office safe," she said, her voice rising with panic and rage. "I want to know who was in my office last night. I want to know immediately." The security team checked the surveillance cameras and the access logs. The cameras showed that only the cleaning staff had been in Victoria's office during the night. The access logs showed that Maria Santos had used her key card to access the office at 9:15 p.m. Victoria didn't hesitate. She immediately called the police and made a report. "A cleaning woman who works in my building stole my diamond necklace. She was in my office last night, and now the necklace is missing. I demand that she be arrested." The police arrived within 20 minutes. They took Victoria's statement. They examined the office and the safe. And then they went to Maria's home to question her. Maria was shocked when police arrived at her apartment. She lived in a modest building in a working-class neighborhood in Boston. She was getting ready for work when officers knocked on her door. "Are you Maria Santos?" one of the officers asked. "Yes," Maria said, confused and frightened. "What is this about?" "I'm Detective Raymond Cooper, and this is Detective Sarah Mills," the officer said. "We're investigating the theft of a valuable diamond necklace from your workplace. We need to ask you some questions." Maria's heart sank. She immediately understood what was happening. She was being accused of stealing something she didn't steal. "I didn't steal anything," Maria said firmly. "I was in Victoria Harrison's office to clean last night. Yes. But I didn't take any necklace. I would never steal from my employer." "We'll need to search your residence," Detective Cooper said, producing a search warrant that Victoria's lawyers had apparently helped expedite. The detectives searched Maria's small apartment from top to bottom. They looked in her bedroom, her kitchen, her bathroom. They looked through her closets and under her bed. They searched through drawers and boxes. They found nothing. No necklace. No diamonds. Nothing that suggested Maria had stolen anything. But the lack of evidence didn't stop Victoria Harrison. Victoria went to the media. She gave interviews to local news stations and newspapers. She painted a picture of a dishonest cleaning woman who had stolen her family heirloom, her precious family treasure. She said, This necklace belonged to my mother and her mother before her. It's not just valuable, it's irreplaceable. And this woman took it from me." The media loved the story. A wealthy lawyer whose family heirloom had been stolen by a poor cleaning woman. It had drama. It had class conflict. It had a clear villain. Maria's face was shown on the local news. The media asked, did she steal the necklace? Her name was mentioned repeatedly in connection with theft and dishonesty. Maria's life immediately fell apart. Her employer, a cleaning service company that contracted with Harrison and Associates, suspended her from her job pending the investigation. The police continued to question her. The media continued to vilify her. Maria's 2 children who had graduated from college and were now working as a nurse and an accountant were devastated. They watched their mother being publicly accused of theft. They saw strangers pointing at her on the street. They saw the damage being done to her reputation and her mental health. Maria's 3rd child, still in nursing school, was particularly affected. Her classmates had seen the news stories. Some of them had made cruel comments. She was embarrassed and traumatized by her mother's public accusation. Maria began to spiral into depression. She stopped sleeping well. She stopped eating properly. She began to lose weight and look haggard. The stress was destroying her. But worst of all, Maria began to lose faith in justice. She had worked hard her entire life. She had broken no laws. She had done nothing wrong. And yet the system seemed to be conspiring against her. Maria couldn't afford a lawyer. She couldn't fight back against Victoria Harrison's power and resources. All she could do was maintain her innocence and hope that somehow the truth would come out. 2 weeks after the initial accusation, Detective Sarah Mills, the female detective, began to have doubts. Something didn't add up. First, there was the issue of motive. Why would Maria, a woman who had worked at the same company for 8 years with no previous theft issues, suddenly steal a necklace? She had never stolen anything before. She had passed background checks. She had good references. Second, there was the issue of the crime itself. If Maria had stolen the necklace, where would she have hidden it? The police had searched her apartment and found nothing. They had checked her bank account and found no new deposits. They had monitored her communications and found no evidence that she had tried to sell the necklace or contact a fence. Third, and most importantly, Detective Mills started asking questions about Victoria Harrison herself. She did some digging into Victoria's background and discovered something very interesting. Victoria Harrison had a son. According to court records, Victoria had given birth to a son when she was 26 years old, during law school. But the boy had been given up for adoption. The adoption records were sealed, as was standard, but Detective Mills could see from public legal filings that the adoption had taken place. Detective Mills started to wonder, why would Victoria Harrison, a successful lawyer who clearly had the resources to care for a child, give up her son for adoption? And what did this have to do with the missing necklace? Detective Mills requested a warrant to access Victoria's sealed adoption records. A judge approved the warrant after Detective Mills explained her suspicions. What the records revealed was shocking. According to the adoption documents, Victoria Harrison had given birth to her son at age 26. The child had been born with a distinctive birthmark on his left cheek, a crescent-shaped mark. Victoria had decided to give the child up for adoption because she felt that having a child at that stage in her career would interfere with her ambitions. She wanted to be a partner in a law firm, not a mother. But there was more. According to the records, the child had been adopted by a couple named Robert and Susan Taylor. And there was a forwarding address and phone number. Detective Mills called the number. She explained the situation to Susan Taylor, Robert's wife. "We're trying to solve a theft case, and I need to ask you about your adopted son," Detective Mills said. Susan Taylor immediately grew defensive. "If this is about," she started to say, "is your son named James?" Detective Mills interrupted. There was a pause. "Yes," Susan said quietly. "How do you know about James?" Detective Mills explained the situation. She explained that she was investigating a theft accusation against a cleaning woman, and that she had come across Victoria Harrison's sealed adoption records. She explained that she was trying to understand whether there was a connection. Susan Taylor began to cry. She told Detective Mills the story of James. James was now 31 years old. He had been raised by loving adoptive parents who had treated him well. But he had always struggled with the fact that his birth mother had given him up for adoption. He had gone through a period of rebellion in his teens and early 20s. He had struggled with depression and anger. At age 28, James had hired a private investigator to find his birth mother. The investigator had located Victoria Harrison. James had worked up the courage to contact her. But Victoria had refused to meet with him. She had refused to acknowledge him. She had told him that she had moved on with her life and didn't want any contact from him. She had been cold and cruel. James had been devastated. He had gone into a deep depression. But he had eventually accepted that his birth mother didn't want him in her life. But here's the thing, Susan Taylor told Detective Mills. James has been struggling with depression for years. He's been in and out of therapy. And about a month ago, he told us that he had decided to meet with Victoria Harrison one more time. He said he wanted to give her a chance to be a mother to him, to at least acknowledge him as her son. Detective Mills felt her pulse quicken. Did he meet with her? She asked. I think he did, Susan said. He wouldn't tell us exactly what happened, but he came back from Boston very upset. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't talk to anyone. He just locked himself in his room for days. Detective Mills thanked Susan and ended the call. She now had a new theory about the missing necklace. Detective Mills obtained another warrant, this time to look at Victoria Harrison's phone records and security camera footage from her office building over the past month. What the footage revealed was damning. The security camera showed Victoria meeting with a young man in the lobby of her office building 3 weeks earlier. The man had a distinctive birthmark on his left cheek. The man was clearly upset during the meeting. Victoria was seen dismissing him coldly, turning her back to him and walking away. 3 weeks later, Maria was accused of stealing the necklace. Detective Mills began to ask herself, what if Victoria Harrison hadn't just met with her son? What if he had stolen the necklace? # karma or the big reveal. Detective Mills decided to bring Victoria Harrison in for questioning. Not as a victim, but as a person of interest. Victoria arrived at the police station in a fury, her lawyer in tow. She demanded to know why she was being questioned. We've been investigating the theft of your necklace, Detective Mills said calmly. And I need to ask you some questions about your interactions with the person who took it. I don't know who took it, Victoria snapped. I know Maria Santos took it. She was in my office. Actually, I don't think Maria Santos took your necklace, Detective Mills interrupted. I think someone else did. I think your son took it. Victoria's face went white. Her lawyer immediately put a hand on her arm. I'm not discussing this, Victoria said coldly. This is harassment. My lawyer. But Detective Mills continued. She pulled out the security footage of Victoria meeting with her son in the lobby. Who is this man? Detective Mills asked, pointing to the young man with the distinctive birthmark. Victoria stared at the screen but said nothing. This is James Taylor, Detective Mills said. Your biological son. The son you gave up for adoption 31 years ago. Victoria's lawyer whispered something in her ear. My client has nothing to say, the lawyer said. Then I have a question for you, Detective Mills said, looking at Victoria directly. Why would you accuse an innocent cleaning woman of stealing your necklace when you knew your son had taken it? Why would you destroy someone's reputation and life rather than face the truth about your own son? Victoria didn't answer, but her silence was deafening. Detective Mills continued. We've discovered that James met with you 3 weeks ago. We have security footage of that meeting. We have your phone records showing that you called your insurance company and your lawyers immediately after that meeting. The timing is suspicious. Did James ask you for help? Did you refuse? Did he take the necklace in anger? I want a lawyer, Victoria finally said. This interview is over. But the damage was done. Detective Mills now had enough evidence to pursue another angle. She tracked down James Taylor and brought him in for questioning. At first, James denied everything. But when Detective Mills showed him the security footage of him in Victoria's office building, when she explained that they had found his fingerprints on the safe, when she explained that lying to police would only make things worse, James broke down. She's my mother, James said, his voice breaking. I just wanted her to acknowledge me. I just wanted her to say that she was sorry for giving me away. I just wanted her to be my mother. James explained what had happened. He had come to Boston to meet with Victoria. He had gone to her office and asked to speak with her. Victoria had been cold and dismissive. She had told him that she didn't want any relationship with him. She had said, "You were a mistake, and I made the right choice in getting rid of you." Getting rid of you, James repeated through his tears. That's what she said. Like I was garbage. Like I was something she needed to dispose of. James had left her office devastated. But as he was leaving, he had seen the necklace on her desk, the necklace that Victoria had mentioned during their brief conversation as a family heirloom, something precious and valuable. I wanted to hurt her the way she hurt me, James said. I took the necklace. I wanted her to experience loss. I wanted her to suffer. But then, James explained, when he heard that Maria had been accused of stealing the necklace, he had been consumed with guilt. He knew he was causing an innocent woman to suffer. I wanted to come forward, James said. I wanted to tell the police that I took it. But I was scared. I was ashamed. And I was still angry at my mother. Detective Mills leaned back in her chair. She now understood the full picture. James was arrested and charged with theft. But Detective Mills also made a recommendation to the prosecutor. James should be offered a chance to work with a counselor and receive treatment for his depression before trial. His crime, while wrong, had clearly been motivated by deep emotional pain and his mother's cruelty. But the real story now became public. The media, which had been happily reporting Victoria's accusation against Maria, now had a new story. Wealthy lawyer accuses innocent cleaning woman of theft, but her own son was the real thief. The story exploded on social media. The narrative flipped almost overnight. Suddenly, Victoria wasn't a victim. She was a villain. She was a woman who had abandoned her son, been cruel to him, and then, rather than face the truth about what he had done, had blamed an innocent cleaning woman to protect her reputation. People started digging into Victoria's past. They discovered her adoption records. They learned about her abandonment of her son. They learned about her dismissive treatment of service workers. They learned about her arrogance and entitlement. Within 48 hours, Victoria Harrison had become one of the most hated people on the internet. Her law firm was flooded with calls from clients demanding that they withdraw their cases. Several major clients fired her firm and took their business elsewhere. The firm's stock value plummeted. Several of her partner lawyers issued statements distancing themselves from her. The Massachusetts Bar Association launched an investigation into Victoria's conduct. They were particularly interested in the question of why she would make a false accusation against an innocent woman, which could constitute a criminal offense. Victoria was charged with filing a false police report. She was also investigated for potentially committing perjury in her statements to police and in her media interviews. But perhaps the worst consequence for Victoria was personal. Her daughter Elizabeth, who had been extremely proud of her mother's success, was devastated. Elizabeth's friends had seen the news. Elizabeth's reputation was damaged by association. Elizabeth began distancing herself from her mother publicly. Victoria's ex-husband, from whom she had been divorced for years, came forward and gave an interview about his experience with Victoria. He described her as cold, ambitious, and lacking in empathy. He said that he wasn't surprised by her actions because they were consistent with who she was as a person. Victoria's own mother, now 85 years old and living in a nursing home, was devastated when she learned what had happened. She had always been proud of her daughter's accomplishments, but she was horrified by what Victoria had done. She reportedly asked to speak with Maria to apologize on behalf of her family. Maria, meanwhile, was vindicated. Detective Mills held a press conference in which she explained the investigation and cleared Maria of any wrongdoing. Maria Santos is an innocent woman, Detective Mills said, looking directly at the cameras. She was accused of a crime she did not commit by someone who had the resources and power to destroy her reputation. I want to apologize to Ms. Santos for the injustice she experienced. I want to thank her for maintaining her dignity and her innocence throughout this ordeal. The clearing of Maria's name became another major news story. The media, which had vilified Maria 2 weeks earlier, now celebrated her vindication. The moral takeaway. In the weeks and months that followed the revelation, several important things happened. First, Maria was offered a settlement by Victoria Harrison's legal team. The settlement included a significant monetary payment, enough to pay for her youngest child's remaining nursing school and set aside some money for her retirement. But more importantly, the settlement included a public apology from Victoria Harrison. Victoria was required to appear at a press conference and publicly apologize to Maria. Victoria was also required to issue a written statement that was published in major news outlets and on social media. "I made a terrible mistake," Victoria's statement read. "I accused an innocent woman of stealing from me when I knew, in my heart, that someone else had taken the necklace. I allowed my pride and my fear to drive me to destroy an innocent person's reputation. Maria Santos did nothing wrong. She is a hard-working, honest woman who has been treated unjustly because of my actions. I ask for her forgiveness and the forgiveness of the Boston community." When Victoria appeared at the press conference to read the statement, she looked like a broken woman. Her confidence was gone. Her power was gone. She was facing the reality of what she had done. Maria attended the press conference. After Victoria had read her statement, Maria was invited to speak. "Thank you for your apology," Maria said to Victoria, her voice clear and strong. "But apologies don't undo the damage. My children were ashamed. My reputation was destroyed. I lost my job. I was treated like a criminal for something I didn't do. This will take me a long time to recover from. But I accept your apology, and I hope you will use this experience to become a better person." Maria then turned to the cameras and said something that resonated with millions of people. "I want to say to everyone watching this, never assume that someone is guilty because of who they are or what they do for work. Never judge someone based on their job or their economic status. And never abuse your power or privilege to destroy someone else's life. We are all human beings, and we all deserve respect and dignity. No matter how much money you have or what position you hold, you don't have the right to treat other people as if they are less than you." The press conference was watched by millions of people. Maria's speech was shared on social media millions of times. People were moved by her grace, her strength, and her wisdom. Victoria, meanwhile, faced serious consequences. The Massachusetts Bar Association suspended her law license for 2 years pending a full investigation. Victoria was required to attend therapy and take courses on ethics and professional responsibility. She was required to perform community service. And she was required to make a substantial donation to an organization that helps homeless people and people in poverty, the very people she had spent her life looking down on. Criminal charges for filing a false police report were eventually dropped in exchange for Victoria's guilty plea to a lesser charge and her agreement to fulfill all the terms of her settlement with Maria. Most significantly, Victoria had to step down from leadership at her law firm. The firm's partners decided that Victoria's presence was too toxic for the company. Victoria had built the firm, but now she was destroying it. She was asked to leave. For James Taylor, Victoria's son, the outcome was different. With the help of Detective Mills and a sympathetic judge, James entered a diversion program rather than going to trial. He was required to complete therapy, anger management classes, and counseling. He was required to serve community service. He was required to pay restitution to Victoria, not because he owed her anything, but as part of the legal process. But more importantly, James was offered mental health support. He was connected with therapists who could help him process his abandonment by his mother and his depression. He was given the resources to heal. Detective Mills, who had shown such integrity throughout this investigation, became something of a media figure herself. She was invited to speak at universities and conferences about investigative work and about the importance of asking questions and following evidence rather than assumptions. She became a voice for justice and truth. Most importantly, the case of Victoria and Maria became a catalyst for broader changes in how law enforcement investigates crimes and handles accusations against vulnerable people. The Boston Police Department created a new policy: when an accusation is made against a service worker or someone from a vulnerable population, the investigation must be especially thorough. Assumptions must be questioned. Evidence must be carefully examined. and the power differential between the accuser and the accused must be taken into account. Several other police departments across the country adopted similar policies. The case became a teaching tool in police academies and in law schools about the dangers of allowing assumptions and power dynamics to drive investigations. 1 year after the incident, Maria was invited to speak at Boston University Law School about her experience. Maria stood in front of a room of law students, the future lawyers and judges of America, and told her story. "When I was accused, I felt completely powerless," Maria said. "I felt like the system was stacked against me. I had no resources to fight back. I had no lawyer. I had no power. All I had was the truth. And I had to hope that eventually, the truth would come out." She paused, looking at the students. "If you become lawyers or judges or police officers or prosecutors, please remember my story," Maria continued. "Remember that the people who come into the system with the least resources are often the ones who need justice the most. Remember that your job isn't to protect people with power. Your job is to serve justice. Your job is to protect the vulnerable. Your job is to make sure that people like me aren't destroyed by false accusations." The law students stood and applauded Maria. Many of them were moved to tears. Maria's story had changed minds. It had changed hearts. It had changed the system, at least a little bit. Victoria, meanwhile, had experienced a complete fall from grace. Her law firm eventually dissolved. Her reputation, which had taken decades to build, was destroyed in a matter of weeks. She moved to a different city to escape the notoriety. She lived a quiet life, working at a smaller law firm in a junior position, a stark fall from her position as a powerful, prestigious lawyer. But the most important change for Victoria came internally. She had been forced to confront herself. She had been forced to see herself through others' eyes. She had been forced to acknowledge her cruelty and her arrogance. Victoria eventually reached out to her son, James. They began attending family therapy together. It was difficult and painful, but slowly, they began to rebuild some kind of relationship. James never fully forgave his mother, the wounds were too deep, but he came to understand her better. And Victoria came to understand the damage she had caused. The diamond necklace, which had been the catalyst for this entire chain of events, was returned to Victoria. But Victoria didn't keep it. Instead, she donated it to a museum. She wrote a statement explaining that the necklace represented a part of her that she no longer wanted to be. She wanted to move forward as a different person. Years later, someone asked Maria what she had learned from this experience. "I learned that justice is possible," Maria said. "I learned that even when you don't have power or resources, truth still matters. I learned that one good person, Detective Mills, can make a difference. But I also learned that the system is broken in many ways. I learned that there are probably thousands of people in prison right now for crimes they didn't commit because they didn't have the resources or the power that I had. Someone like Detective Mills who cared enough to ask questions." Maria used her settlement money to start a non-profit organization that helps service workers and people in poverty who have been falsely accused of crimes. The organization provides legal representation, media support, and community support to people who are fighting unjust accusations. The organization has helped over 300 people in its first 5 years of operation. Maria's story, which began in shame and humiliation, had become a story of triumph and service. She had taken her pain and transformed it into something that helps others. Clap aboard the final lesson. This story teaches us something profound about power, privilege, and accountability. Victoria Harrison had spent her entire life accumulating power and wealth. She had used that power to look down on people like Maria. She had believed that her wealth and status made her superior. She had believed that she was above the rules that governed ordinary people. But when her power and privilege came into conflict with truth and justice, she lost everything. The diamond necklace that had been the symbol of her family's wealth and status became the instrument of her downfall. The thing she had valued most, her reputation, her status, her power, was destroyed in a matter of weeks. Maria, on the other hand, who had nothing but her integrity and her hard work, emerged victorious. Her reputation was restored. She was vindicated. And she was able to use her experience to help others. The lesson for all of us is this: Your worth as a human being is not determined by your wealth or your status. Your worth is determined by your character, your integrity, and how you treat other people. No amount of money or power can protect you from the consequences of treating people unjustly, and no amount of poverty or powerlessness can diminish your dignity or your right to justice. We all have a responsibility to treat service workers, homeless people, and people in poverty with respect and dignity. We all have a responsibility to question assumptions and seek truth. And we all have a responsibility to stand up for justice, even when it's difficult or unpopular. Because at the end of the day, truth always comes out. And justice always finds a way. Asterisk if this story about justice, dignity, and the power of truth moved you, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that will restore your faith in humanity and remind you that good still exists in the world. Hit the notification bell to stay updated. And in the comments below, share your thoughts about this story. Have you ever witnessed injustice? Have you ever stood up for someone who was being treated unfairly? Your voice matters, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Asterisk about this story. This story was crafted to illustrate the dangers of allowing power and privilege to corrupt our judgment, and the importance of seeking truth even when it's uncomfortable. It's a reminder that vulnerable people deserve dignity and respect, and that real justice requires questioning our assumptions and following evidence rather than bias. The story also shows that one person with integrity, like Detective Mills, can change the course of justice.